Hello everyone, it is time for the yearly tradition of me saying what I'm going to read in 2023, or the next year, while ignoring that my predictions of what I was going to read for the previous year were largely not correct. Well, I mean, they weren't terrible. I read a lot of what I was going to say. There was a section where I said, I absolutely guarantee I will at least start all of these series, and I didn't. I read most of them, but I said I would start Kharkanas for sure, and I said I would start The Expanse for sure, and I didn't start either. No, I technically started The Expanse in 2022. I just finished the first book in 2023. Didn't start Kharkanas. I let you down there. But anyway, also, I'm going to make 5-star predictions, and we're going to see how it goes. Let's get into it. These videos always go really long. Okay, first off, 5-star predictions for last year. I did kind of okay. My predictions were Lord of Emperors, River of Stars, Kingdoms of Death, Ashes of Man, and To Green Angel Tower. Lord of Emperors was my favorite book of the year, so that was a win. Kingdom of Death and Ashes of Man were both up there. They didn't get full 5 stars, so ultimately I kind of considered a failure, but I didn't have 5 books that got full 5 stars, so I was kind of a losing battle, and I got 1 out of 3. The other 2 would have been A Brightness Long Ago and Speaking Bones, and then To Green Angel Tower wasn't close. I just didn't enjoy it that much. I mean, I liked it, just not compared to the 5-star ones. Anyways, and I read most of what I said I would, but not all. Okay, editing Jake and editing Vin here to say I did also read a bunch of things that weren't on this list, and I'm being actually a bit hard on myself because there were a bunch of things on the also read that I definitely knew I was reading when I made this spreadsheet, so I don't know why they weren't included. Like, I was doing the Memory Sword and Thorn read along. I was already, I finished some series, and obviously I read a bunch of Guy Gavriel, K and Black Company, but, for here, the things in green are the things that I read. Actually, I just lied. Earthseed is a duology. I read Parable of the Sower, so that should be yellow. Yellow is things that I started and didn't finish, so series, and then red is things that I didn't read, yeah. And then the slightly different color red for Night Angel is things I decided I'm probably never going to read. Anyway, so we did okay. You know, we didn't do great. Considering, if you go back to the video, I maybe said that I definitely will read all of the things and will read. But, whatever. So, in 2023, I'm going to read a few more non-fantasy sci-fi books, and I'm going to start with those now. I've got, I don't know, a few. One of them is a trilogy that kind of gets lumped in with fantasy books, but I'm counting it, so deal with it. And I don't know what order I have these held up, because the one I'm holding now is probably going to be one I read later in the year, but Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. This book's a weird book, because it seems like everything I've heard about it, everyone says their opinion with such conviction. This is either one of the best books they've ever read, or people insist that it's actually just trash, and Ken Follett can't write, and he should have stuck to thrillers. And very little in between. Sounds kind of similar to the Sarantine Mosaic. We'll see. I liked page 1, because I've read page 1 of this, and I thought it was a good page 1, but we'll see what I end up thinking, and I'm sure I'll end up thinking it with quite a bit of conviction, if whatever I've seen makes sense. And then here's the next one that gets lumped in with fantasy ones, and that is The Warlord Chronicles by Bernard Cornwell. I think I might do a read-along for this trilogy. I want to do another one, because the Dandelion one was fun. It'll be later in the year, and I'll probably try and do the same thing, where I get 3 different people for each book. Really excited for this. Heard almost all good things. So, yeah. I mean, Winter King, Bernard Cornwell. Technically not fantasy, so it counts on this list. Next up, we have one that I am reading, because it's one of my mom's favorite books. And, I mean, she read Realm of the Elderlings and Stormlight, so Turnabout's fair play. And that is The Kite Runner, which is obviously a very, very well-known book that I haven't read. So I'll be reading this earlier in the year. I don't know when, but this will be read this year for sure. Next up, this one will be probably one of the first non-fantasy books I read this year. I'll probably read this in February. That is Augustus by John Williams. John Williams sounds like the type of author I would really like. Hello, Vin. And I'm also really like Roman history, specifically this period of time in Roman history. And I really like books in letter forms. So this really seems like if there was a non-fantasy book that was written for me, it sounds like it's this one. So this one would be shocking if I didn't love it. And in fact, this is going to be a 5-star prediction. Okay, next up, we have a Cormac McCarthy novel. And You know, I didn't know what Cormac McCarthy novel to start to, but I went through this really complicated process. And in the end, I went with this one because it was $4 in a bookstore. And that was No Country for Old Men. I have seen the movie, and I've read the first page, and both were excellent. So, yeah, Cormac McCarthy. I haven't seen this be, like, one of his favorites, but also I've seen a lot of people have this, like, very consistently good compared to, like, some Cormac McCarthy books, like Blood Meridian is some people's, like, favorite books ever, and then some people, like, found it to be really a slog. This one seems, like, very consistent, and it was $4. So that's the real reason. Alright, now we got fancy editions. That's right, I bought fancy editions for these books, and I haven't even read them. But to be fair, they weren't actually that much more expensive than hardcovers, and they're way nicer. And the first of these is... Hello, Dylan, if you're watching this. The Brothers Karamazov. Yeah, by Dostoevsky. I should probably... Actually, Crime and Punishment should also be here. I think... Am I supposed to read Crime and Punishment first? Doesn't matter. Anyways, I've got this super fancy edition that's... like, weird, because it has the pages like this. So, like, you read this, and then you read this, and then you read this, and then you read this. Anyway, Russian classics. What could possibly go wrong? The edition's really nice, by the way. Easton Press. So, yeah, gonna read that. And I've got my second Easton Press book. These came together. And that is a more normal format, but... This one is the one I'm more excited for. It is The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. Kind of goes really well with Stormlight Leatherbrowns. And this is probably going to be one of the earlier ones I read. It's obviously massive, but it sounds relatively readable for a classic. So, going with that. And then lastly, we have the book I'm reading right now, which is also, because it's one of my mother's favorite books, and that is, I Know This Much Is True. I am currently reading this right now. I'm on page 160. It's really good. So... we're doing really well. This is about two twin brothers, one of whom is... it's about a twin brother who his twin has, like, schizophrenia. And it seems to just kind of be about his life and a lot of, like, how it's impacted by having, like, a twin brother who... like, usually twins are, like, very similar in every way, but this one, like, there's one major thing that pushes them apart and also, like, causes a lot of tension in other aspects of his life just because of, like... how dedicated he is to his twin brother. And it's really good so far. It's a long book. It's like almost 900 pages. Pretty thin paper. But I'm really enjoying it. So there you go. Let's move on back to the normal stuff. Fantasy and sci-fi. Okay, so first off, there's a few series that I am in the middle of that I actively want to get caught up on. There's some series that I'm in the middle of that I have no plans to catch on. But first is these, and for whatever reason, these have been in progress for a good amount of time. The first one is because the third book wasn't out, and it will probably be the next book I read, is The Lonesome Crown by Brian Lee Durfee. First two books have obviously been pretty damn excellent. I have only heard really good things about the last one, so I look forward to going into Fiery Absolution, and hopefully I have not forgot everything from the first two novels. Right now, if you ask me, I'd say I did, but I'm trusting in the advice of Read by Kyle that says that once I start reading, I'll remember things more, because... so you might see me in Discord going, who's this person? Very, very shortly. And next up is Dune, Children of Dune and God, Emperor of Dune. I am one of the basic people who really loved Dune, the first book, and then was kind of mixed on Dune Messiah. But I do absolutely want to read these two as well, and it's something I got to get done at some point this year. And for another very widely read book that I read book one, this one I only read book one of, is The Golden Compass by Philip Pullman. I got kind of a nudge to continue this because a couple other people who liked but were like pretty mid on The Golden Compass, I recently read The Subtle Knife and loved it. So there's still hope. I know, like, traditionally when it gets read by younger people, I think they tend to like book one more, but I don't know. Hopefully I like books 2 and 3 more. But I mean, they're really short, so it shouldn't be that big of a deal. And we got to get these done. Okay, so there are a bunch of series that I have started recently, or authors that I've read who I want to read more of in the next year. An obvious one that I don't have the physical copies for, they're on the way, is the rest of the Long Price Quartet by Daniel Abraham. And I also have book 1 of the Dagger and the Coin series by Daniel Abraham, both of which I expect to read in 2023. We'll see, but these are definitely series I want to read more than a lot of others. And then you, of course, have my favorite author of all time by far, who has written a trilogy that I haven't read, which is the Soldier Son trilogy, of which I have book 1, Shaman's Crossing. There is a buddy read for this. I think it's June, July, August with like Derry and Madison and Scott. There might be someone I'm forgetting, but those are the ones I remember. And actually, I'll probably also read the urban fantasy Wizard of the Pigeons, which is by Megan Lindholm, who, for those of you who don't know, is just Robin Hobb, but her actual name, because Robin Hobb's name is not Robin Hobb. These are obviously the Robin Hobb, so I'm excited, because she's like my favorite author by a lot. So, those have got to happen. And next up is I have my first Adrian Tchaikovsky book, which is Empire of Black and Gold, because of course you got to start with the 10-book series. I like my fantasy. So I don't know why this is here on this stack. I haven't started this series. This is in the wrong stack. It's in the wrong section, but we're rolling with it anyways. This should be with all the books that are over there, not on this stack. But anyways, it's probably a thing. Next up is an author who I read one book of in 2022, and it was excellent. It was on my top book list, and it was on there relatively comfortably. And that is Lewis. Someone told me how to pronounce this right. Was it? Okay, it is Lois McMaster Bujold. Thank you, Sean. And these are the other books by her I have. I've got Paladins of Souls and The Hallowed Hunt. And then I have book 1 of Vorkosian, Shards of Honor. I probably won't read every one of her books this year, but I'm going to read a lot of them. She's absolutely going to be a priority author who I'm really looking forward to. And we also have 2 short story collections, one of whom I've only read a short story collection, which is Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chiang, which I'm very excited for. A lot of people who have read this and Exhalation like this more than Exhalation, on average, from what I've seen. Let me know if you've read both. Which one do you like more? And Exhalation was obviously, it was phenomenal. It was on my top 10 book list. Especially, like, you know, a few of them were truly, truly excellent. And then also, I've got The Paper Menagerie and Other Stories by Ken Liu. I read The Dandelion Dynasty this year, and it's one of my favorite series ever, so I'm going to read the Ken Liu short stories. And, I mean, a lot of people seem to think of him more as a short story writer than an epic fantasy writer. So, very, very, very excited for The Paper Menagerie and Other Stories. And Stories of Your Life and Others. And next up, we got, the last book I read was Leviathan Wakes. We're going to read more Expanse. I don't own any other Expanse books right now, but I want to say that it is on the list. We'll read more Expanse. Okay, and last but not least, with the third book coming out, I am going to, at some point, have to get to Iron, Gold, and Dark Age by Pierce Brown. I do have a review of Red Rising on my channel. I like Red Rising. It's not one of my favorite series ever. This sounds like it's, I mean, we'll see if I like this more, less, or the same. But I mean, I know a lot of people like this a lot more, so we will get into it. And now there's a whole bunch of kind of new stuff that I hope to start as well. Man, this is a lot of books. I'm not going to get through these all. Oh, and last but not least, I forgot, because I don't own it physically, because I couldn't find a good edition physically. Earth of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe. It's got to be done relatively soon. Love Book of the New Sun. Apparently I'm supposed to read it relatively soon. So that's going to happen as well. Okay, I now have a big stack of books on my right, and I've got them from top to bottom in relative order of priority-ish, that are all... Well, one is not a new-to-me author, but it's another. 2 aren't a new-to-me authors, the rest are authors I've never read before. But before I talk any of those, I have to mention that I will, of course, be reading the Eden Trilogy by Philip Chase, fellow booktuber and just one of the nicest people. I'm really looking forward to reading these. For those of you who don't know, he is self-publishing his entire trilogy that he's been working on for a long time this year, and I believe book 1 is coming out March 21st, and I will, of course, be reading those whenever they come out. You know, Philip's one of my favorite channels, and just one of the nicest people. I had to talk with him on his channel. I was there for Dear Dr. Fantasy, had a great time, and hope I really enjoy his books. Obviously, you know, you can never be sure, but I'm looking forward to him, Philip. So that's going to be a priority when it comes out. But, I mean, I'll read some of these before, so let's get back to the books I own physically. Let's start with a book that I've recommended to me by Oliver, primarily. Philip Chase also really likes it. Patrick really likes it. And it is a self-published book that's got some heft to it. And I'm supposed to be reading this very soon. And now I'm like, holy crap, I'm also supposed to be rereading Game of Thrones, and I just got The Lonesome Crown. And these are all long books. Okay, we'll see how it goes. And that is Dreams of the Dying by Nicholas Litzau. which is a self-published book that has been slightly divisive, but sounds pretty good. And, you know, I generally trust Oliver's recommendations quite a bit. I would say we talk with Oliver quite a lot on Discord. He's one of the people I talk to the most on Discord. So he's going to be he's going to read the Fiona of Our Tapestry. I told him he could read anything Guy Gavriel, we TBR swap. He picked Fiona of Our, which I think is ill-advised, but what are you going to do? Okay, next up, and I'm not going to lie, this next one is here largely because of obligation. It's the one I don't know if I'm going to like it, or how much I'm going to like it, but I was supposed to read it last year, and it's The Shadow of What Was Lost by James Islington. Yeah, I mean, I've owned this for too long. I need to read this. This needs to be a thing. I keep anti-hyping myself. I need to just... Like, it's supposed to be really well-paced. I'll read it fast. It's big, but I'll read it fast. So it needs to happen. And next I've got a few standalones. One I think technically isn't a standalone. I am going to do another month of standalones. And one of the standalones that I'm going to read, I bought this because I know a few people really, really loved it. Hi, Evie, if you're watching this. And also, frankly, I just saw the cover in the store and was just like, gimme. And it's The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. Like, look at it. It's so gorgeous. And like, look at it. And like, look. And so, Evie read almost all of Realm of the Elderlings, and this was still her book of the year. So if it's not truly phenomenal, I will declare a holy war. And next up, a book that will apparently completely change my life, and that is Babel by R.F. Kuang. I've, of course, read The Poppy War, and I did like The Poppy War, so I'm going to read Babel. I've read page 1 of Babel, and I thought it was very good. R.F. Kuang is an author I like. She's not one of my favorite authors ever. I am not expecting this to be my book of the year. I am expecting it to be good. That's where we're at. Expecting like a solid 8 out of 10. I'm expecting it to be really well plotted. Yeah. I don't know. I'm not one of the people who's like... I'm not expecting it to be my book of the year. Anyway, next we have the worst cover in the history of the genre. And that is Heroes Die. By Matthew Stover. By the way, if you Google the actual artist, like if you Google this full art, it's actually not bad. It's just because like they cut it off with his header that it looks terrible. So this sounds like one of the most beautifully chaotic books that I have ever read. I know the premise of this because I watched the Library's Ladder review of this. The Library's Ladder review of this is an amazing video, and it made me want to read it. So this is Heroes Die's got to happen. Next up, we have an author who is not known for taking a long time to write books, and I've read one very short book by them. So of course, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. This book is huge, but I'm expecting it to be very well written because it's Susanna Clarke, so we'll see what happens. Next up, we have book 1 of a series that I have no idea if I will like, and that is, it's a series known for being very, very dark. Like, very dark. I've heard some of the philosophical positions it takes are things that can very much annoy me when certain things are implied, as if you've seen my Exhalation review, you'll know. And that is The Darkness That Comes Before by R. Scott Baker. I generally like hope, so as far as I can tell, my view of humanity is very, very different for R. Scott Baker. So for me to enjoy this, it's just going to have to be really, really good, which apparently it is really, really good. So we'll see what happens. I have no idea. This series could end up being one of my favorites ever. I could end up hating it and giving it 1 star. This is definitely the series where, like, the range of how much I could like it, perceived by me, is, like, the highest. I'm the least sure about how much I'll like this. But, we'll see. We'll do a little holy war. Next up, we have a book that I just bought because it looked like Live Ship, and that's The Bone Ships by R.J. Barker. But it sounds really good. So this, I don't know if I'm going to get to this year, but it's definitely one of the series that is on my radar that I might get to this year. So, there you go. And next we have another self-published series by Zach Argyle, Voice of War, which is pretty short and It's kind of similar to the Bone Chip. If I'm in the mood, I'm going to read this. If I'm not, I'm not. I'm not guaranteeing I'm going to read this, but it's one that, will be considered for later in the year. And this is going to be true for all of these. Next up, we have a KJ Parker book, 16 Ways to Defend a Walled City, which Alan's going to yell at me because he's like one of the only ones, I think he doesn't recommend starting with this. But I really like sieges. So, try and stop me. Go nerdy siege book. And next, we have a book I got really recently, which is Titus Grown by Mervyn Peake. This is a book that came out before Lord of the Rings. So if you want pre-Tolkien fantasy, here you go. It is supposed to be very centered around the castle of Gormenghast. The writing is supposed to be otherworldly. So we'll see how it goes. This is another one that I really don't know how much I'm going to like, but I will say I'm a lot more excited for this than I was when I first heard about it. And last but not least, we have Theft of Swords by Michael J. Sullivan. Basically, I'm expecting this to be very fast-paced, for it to be very fun, and for it to not be like, the deepest thing I've ever read. But I'll read it if I want something fast-paced and fun. So probably like, if I read The Darkness that comes before and Titus Grown back-to-back, and I'm just like, I've had enough of this, then there's a good chance this could happen. Okay, that's basically all the series that are on my radar, so that means chances are something else will come up, and I'll read like 5 things that aren't here at all. I will note, I will still be rereading things. I'm not planning out the reread. I'm going to try and do the Song of Ice and Fire read-along, but when I plan rereads, I just end up not wanting to do them, so I'll reread things if I'm in the mood to reread them. I'll probably reread Start Live Ship. I'll probably reread Words of Radiance. I want to reread A Song of Ice and Fire, because I think I'll like it a lot more than the last time I liked it. I liked it the last time I read it, but I think I'll like it more now. And I'll probably reread Sarantine Mosaic, if I'm being completely honest. And who knows, maybe more Guy Gavriel K stuff. Maybe I'll reread Lord of Chaos. So, might just do an entire month of rereads at some point. Who knows? Anyways, that is it. That is what I plan to read. So we are going to do 5-star predictions, and then we'll head out of here. Okay, so I am making 6 5-star predictions, because I didn't feel like cutting any of these. And you know what? Normally I'm at a disadvantage, because I make 5, and they can't all be right. So I'm making another this year as compensation for last year it being impossible for me to get that many and only having the chance to get 3. Okay, so, oh yeah, forgot to mention, I'm going to read the Secret Projects as well. So, the Sanderson ones. Anyways, 5-star predictions. The first one I have, this is an author I've never read, and I'm being brainwashed here by a pretty cover, and she was the only Evie. But apparently it's better than Realm of the Elderlings, so that would mean it's 5 stars. So Evie, if this isn't a 10 out of 10, then I'll be extremely disappointed in you. So, Spear Cuts Through Water. I am, by pure impulse, putting this on the 5-star predictions. Probably if I filmed this yesterday or tomorrow, I would not have done this. Right now, I'm like, we're putting it on here. Okay, next up, the 2 books that I don't have. The first of which is Mere Dance by Lois McMaster-Bujold, which is, from what I've heard, the Vorkosigan book that's the, most payoff. The way it's been described almost reminds me of, how Changes is described for Dresden, but, the Vorkosigan version of it. I think most people who read Bujold would say they like that more than Chalion, and I really like Chalion, so fingers crossed. And the next one is Forest Mage by Robin Hobb. Book 2 of The Soldier Son. I have seen pretty universally considered the best of the 3 Soldier Son books, so if it's the best one of a Robin Hobb trilogy, its odds are pretty good. It's a more divisive Robin Hobb trilogy, but frankly, whatever, it still probably has a better chance of being a 5-star than any other novel I read this year. Next up, was mentioned relatively recently, was Stories of Your Life and Others by Ted Chiang. This definitely, Exhalation, some of them would have gotten 5 stars, and apparently this is even better, so I figure it's a pretty good pick as a 5-star prediction. And very similarly, Paper Menagerie and Other Stories. I am also considering, because, this was someone who was in my top 2 this year, so they clearly have that potential, so I think it makes sense. And last but not least, because it sounds like absolutely the book for me, is Augustus by John William. I'm not going to lie, my expectations for this book are exceedingly high, because it sounds like it is extraordinarily high quality, and it is exactly the type of book I like. So that is what I got for 5-star predictions. In the comments below, let me know how badly you think I will fail at these reading plans. Let me know if my 5-star which of my 5, if you've read any of my 5-star predictions, or if you've read any of these. Are you reading any of these? Very curious to hear what you think about a lot of these. Do you think I'm going to hate any of the 5-star predictions? Do you think there's any books on here that I haven't put on 5-star predictions that you've read and you know my taste and you think I made a mistake because I should have predicted them because I'm going to give them 5 stars? Very curious to hear. Let me know. Have a nice day, everyone.